Hey Gaurav, how are you today?
Hey Cameron, thank you so much. Such a pleasure being with you one more time. So
Yeah,
I'm doing very well.
this is interesting. This is like the flip of what I normally do because I either have I run a podcast called the Second in Command podcast where I interview COOs and get to know them. But this is interesting now with me interviewing you for your podcast. So it's going to give everyone who's listening a little bit of an inside glimpse as to who you are, and also me an opportunity to get to know more of you as well because I was a
A-
guest on your podcast a
Absolutely.
while ago. Yeah, so tell
Absolutely.
me, go ahead.
When we were just looking at who could be the best person that could bring out the best in others, and we did not have several choices because we were very clear who we would want to bring on board. And thank you, as I mentioned, that's so kind of you to have accepted our invitation to be the
Yeah, I'm
host
looking
on the
for.
podcast, The X Months Drive.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes and also to learning a little bit more about you. So why don't you tell me a little bit about you, Gaurav? Like Gaurav is the man, Gaurav is the human, without your title, without the business, who are you?
That's a question that I've been pondering on for the longest period of time. I've had the privilege of interviewing so many thought leaders in the last 3 years' time. And every time when I get into a conversation with them, I ask them, who are you without your titles? And most of us tend to fumble. I fumble. So let me be truthful to you, hand on heart. I don't have an answer for that. I don't have an
Mm,
answer for that. I still get attached to titles. I do get attached to my accomplishments. I do get attached to people that I know. I I take pride in saying that I know Cameron really well. I take pride in saying that I know so and so really well. At the same time, the journey that I'm on to right now, the closest that I've been to my own self is when I declare my statement, my intention statement. That is to hold the space for others with compassion, where they can live their life from a space of self awareness, self acceptance, joy, courage, possibilities, and shukrana. And at the cognitive level, I can say that I'm soul, I am spirit, I am consciousness. But I think, you know what? I'm not yet one with that. I'm not one
mm.
with the spaciousness as much as I would want to be. So, still searching for that answer. Who am I without my titles? Difficult question, but definitely a
It
profound question to ponder on.
it is. I actually just wrote it down. I'm holding an event for our COO Alliance in April where we're all going very inward. We have a monk coming to speak. We have someone who studied Buddhism for years coming to speak. And we're definitely doing this kind of inward journey. And
Mm,
I'm going to ask my COO Alliance members, who are they without their title and without their business, right? Who are they
mm,
as a human? Because yeah, I think it's a great question to ponder. So how about, you've clearly been very successful in your career and you're very well known in the India business marketplace. Um, how about when you were just feeling like the imposter syndrome or you weren't feeling like you were good enough? Tell me about a time when that kind of occurred for you. Which
uh,
which one?
several times, right? Several times. I was instrumental in putting together one of the initial coach training programs together in the country. And even when I was one of those handful of people certified on coaching in the country, and yet when people would look at me and say, "Hey, we are looking for someone um, with more experience," and I would wonder, what kind of experience are you looking for? Lord, tell me. And a friend of mine, his name is Vikram Kaul, he was kind enough to tell me on my face, "Hey, Gaurav, we are looking for someone with gray hair or no hair." I said, "Shucks, man, you'd have told me initially itself." So that was one of those situations. Another situation I remember, I did a program for GE Capital in the year 2008
Yep.
for high potential, high performers of GE Capital. And trust me, I literally cried at the end of the day because I could not answer the questions those high potential, high performers
Yeah.
had. And I literally cried.
You probably could have answered the questions, but you probably, like I do, tend to get in your head a little bit and worry when the only
Yeah,
reason you're in the they already know you're the expert. That's why you're in the
precisely.
room. But I
Precisely.
think we overthink it in terms of like what could I possibly have to give them, right?
Precisely.
So So when you go through a situation like that, or when you go through a failure, how do you bounce back from that? How do you pick yourself up or recover? Because, often those around us don't pick us up. What do you do to pick yourself back up when you fail?
I'll share with you a couple of examples. In fact, recently I delivered one of the keynote speeches for one of the organizations, and according to me, it did not go well. It did not go as I would have expected. For some time, I was really down. I was pondering what went well. I'm not good enough. I don't think that I'm there yet. I don't deserve to be here. And I started wondering, hey, why am I wearing this shirt? I don't deserve to wear this kind of expensive shirt. Why am I wearing these kind of branded shoes? I don't deserve to be that. And then I took a pause and I took a break and started asking myself, what went well? Now, this
Mm,
flipping of perspective requires when I was willing to take a pause and reflect on what's going really well in life.
I
And
like
none
that.
of,
I heard that we're not supposed to measure against our goals. We're not supposed to measure against how well others are doing. We're supposed to measure down. We're supposed to see how far we've come or how much better we're doing. Like I heard someone say one time, and I'm sure this is true as well of you, 1 billion people on the planet would give their life to have yours,
definitely,
even on the day that you're failing, right? So
definitely,
do
definitely.
you do you set time in your day or in your practice to praise yourself? I know that you're probably good at praising others and praising your clients. Do you
Aha,
set time to praise yourself?
that's a beautiful question. Do I block my time to praise myself? I think my way of, I would say, I will not say do I praise myself. I say, do I praise life? Yes, my daily prayer, my daily ritual is to express my shukrana. Shukrana is being grateful for being alive. Just before this conversation, Cameron, I was wondering, how could I get so lucky to have Cameron to interview me on my podcast? I mean, why would you agree even? Why would anyone agree to be the host on somebody else's podcast? If it's not grace, what else would you name that? And when I start to when I start to look at situations like these, the people that I have met, the situations that I have encountered, the opportunities that I've been blessed with, the people that I have met in my life, my family, my friends, the work that I do, the life that I have, I think enough and more um, times I say shukrana to life. So is it equivalent to praising myself? To a large extent, I think God has been extremely kind to me. And there's some grace which is shining at me. And that through that, I get all the glory. So, yes, firm, yes, in capitals, yes.
That's good. I like that. All right. So in India, I know you're one of the top coaches out there, probably in the top 10 in India. I think people, when they don't get to know you, create assumptions, right? They see you in social media or they read about you. And what do you think the assumptions that they would have about you would be, and where are they wrong?
Where they are wrong, definitely. I'm not sure if I'm one of the top 10 coaches. That's one. But I'll be very happy if people can say that he's definitely a mindful, thoughtful human being. And I'm very mindful of when I'm using the word, he is a mindful, thoughtful human being, not one of the, because one of the has got a lot of comparisons to that. That's one. And that's exactly what I've been trying to be away from, because enough of comparison that I've lived my life from. So the assumption that they might have that, hmm, I really don't know what are those assumptions that people might have of me. But I think why they might have this impression is because of the work that we are doing in the industry. I'm definitely one of those lucky few who got an opportunity to get into this space quite early when there were not many coaches in the country. Just got
Hmm.
lucky. So by the virtue of having spent so much time, I think the credit is coming my way, which I'm really humbled and happy about. If I'm one of the top 10, who are one of the top 20? Who are the top one? I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. Who is putting people on that one, two, three, four? But yeah, I'm really happy that I am where I am. As you mentioned, several people would give millions of dollars to be where I am today. And I'm really humbled about that, really happy about that. I've worked really hard to be where I am. And God has been kind, I would say yes.
Good. Well, here's a bit of a random question. This is kind of one of those dinner topics. If you could go to any era, travel in time back to any era, where would you go and when would you go? Like what era would you go back to and why?
Boom. I'll come to you and I'll give you a tight hug for this. Thank you. I will tell you, right? And if I could go to another era, I would definitely want to visit 1500s. During that time,
The Maharaja era?
not Maharajas, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. I don't know if you have heard of him. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the first guru of Sikhism.
Okay.
He traveled over 28,000 kilometers. And he had 5 journeys, and it's known as Udasiyas. Udasiyas means different journeys that he had, and where he traveled to different countries, including, of course, India, Tibet, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Baghdad. And I think just by his sheer presence, magic happened. For me, he's an epitome of love and kindness and compassion. For me, he's an epitome of detachment. For me, he's the epitome of humanity. For me, he's an epitome of equity, equality. He spoke about how it's important to give, to share. When he spoke about Vanda Chakho, share what you have with others. Nam Japo, always be in service of others, always be kind to others, always be in the of, continue to recite the name of Ekumkar, the one who's the creator. So I would definitely would love to visit that era if I can somehow.
I like it. All right. So when you started your podcast, probably very similar to me, I've done about 260 episodes now, and I had no idea how much learning that would happen over that time. I was purely doing it to interview these people and let them share their stories, but it's almost been like a real world MBA getting to listen to all these second commands. You've done over 100 episodes now. I think we're at lucky number 108. What are your key learnings or reflections that you want to share? What have you pulled from the last, the first batch?
I can go on and on and on, and I'm sure you would be able to, and in fact, you have written several books. I would be able to write at least one book on the learnings only by the pearls of wisdom that I could gather from all these masterful coaches and leaders and business leaders and authors on my show. Just to share with you a couple, I think the more I interact with people, the more I realize that how important is kindness and compassion. That's one. Expression, connection, and contribution. They are the basic desires of a human soul. I remember my conversation with Jerry Colonna and Alan Hunkins, where they mentioned that who you are is how you lead. My conversation with Pat Williams, where he spoke about that when you climb the mountain, you don't go there and stay there. You go there, you enjoy, look around, enjoy the fresh breeze of air. And after some time, you come back so that you can scale another mountain. My learning from other leaders, where I got to learn about curiosity and connection. And also, I think how all these people are so giving. All these people are so giving. My conversation with Jason Pfeiffer, my conversation with Amit Malik, my conversation with Rohit Thakur, my conversation with Shiv Kumar. I think all these people are so giving.
That's cool. All right. So you have in a lot of your work come up with a lot of philosophical thoughts. You've surrounded yourself with brilliant people. You've certainly read a lot about some of the great thinkers of the past. And I want to ask you about some that I know are meaningful to you. So one is who you are is how you coach. So that's an interesting one. I've never even read that one before. encountered that. How do you relate to that? Who you are is what you coach, or how you coach.
Cameron, thank you for asking this question. As I mentioned, I've been in the space of coaching now for over now, what, 15 years now. And if there's one statement that shifted everything for me, is this statement: who you are is how you coach. And the more I reflect on this statement, the more I wonder about who I am as an individual. And that's how this one statement is connected to when I ask people, who are you without your titles? And people fumble there. People fumble there because we find it extremely difficult, at least I find it extremely difficult to describe myself without, if I don't have the title, who am I? So who am I? This question is a question that people have been asking from the time immemorial, be it Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Alan Watt, Robert Spira, Deepak Chopra, Ramana Maharishi ji, and all the sages of the world. They've been asking this question: who am I? Now, so that means if I'm vibrating at a certain level, I can coach the other person only from that level. So who you are is how you coach. Now let's further double click on the word coach and replace the word coach with leader. Who you are is how you lead. Let's replace this word lead with other words, like who you are is how you brother, who you are is how you partner, who you are is how you sister, who you are is how you father, who you are is how you host, who I am is how I guest, who you are is how you live. Isn't that? And the more I look into this statement, the more I take a pause and look at myself from a witness point of view and make the necessary shifts. Who I'm being is, am I adding value in this conversation, or I'm just blabbering? But there's one space in the last 30 minutes conversation that we're having. I said, I worked really hard and I achieved that. And I could smell some kind of arrogance in my own voice. And that's where I revisited myself. You know what? God has been extremely kind, because the hard work also, the circumstances were such that this so-called human called Gaurav had no other option but to work hard. And that's where I think the more I ponder on this statement, the more I get into the space of surrender and that stillness. And then I experience a tension between my greed, my ego, and the space, the spaciousness, which is so pious. So who you are is how you live, is how you coach.
I want to ask you a random question about coaching, and I'm curious around this. There's a bit of a spectrum between coaching and consulting and mentoring. You know, coaching by its nature is supposed to be the Socratic method, where we ask lots of questions to get the person to uncover, and then mentoring is when we're going to tell people what to do based on our experience, and consulting is when they tell us what they need and we do it for them. Are you more of a coach or a mentor or an advisor or a guide? Where do you kind of see yourself in this whole spectrum?
I think on this spectrum, I would definitely position myself as a coach, where definitely I ask questions. And the space that I held, and the space that I hold for the person that I'm talking to. And I think that has become a part of who I am. I don't need to step into that zone just as a professional. I think those traits have become a part of who I am as an individual. So in a conversation, I would ask a question and then leave the person with a space where the person can ponder on and reflect on, and then will come up. And then there's another question, and followed by another question, and then followed by some silence, and then followed by some space, and then some breakthrough.
Yeah. So you've often said that the journey of a coach is the journey of a human being. Why do you say that?
Oh, as I mentioned, who you are is how you coach, and who you are is how you live. Because in case if I cannot be a better human being, how can I become a coach for the other person? If, my limited understanding says that we hardly connect with each other, Cameron. If I ask myself, when was the last time I took a pause and asked a friend, hey, how are you? I don't remember.
Right. And
Because,
to truly pause and care, right?
yeah, because, there's always a coach who's talking to a vice president of a technology company. There's always a entrepreneur talking to another entrepreneur. There's always a identity which is meeting another identity. When am I willing to let go of that identity to meet another person without identity? A person without the title meeting another person without the title. And what happens is two human beings interacting with each other. And that's a very difficult journey. And that's the reason I say that I'm on that path where I would love to meet my own self before I meet the other person. So the journey of a coach is definitely journey of a human being, Cameron. Thank you for
That's
asking that question.
I love it. So prepare for life and prepare for death. What do each of those statements mean for you?
Prepare for life. Now you're asking tough, difficult questions from me, Cameron. Prepare for life and prepare for death. Prepare for death. I don't think that was ever there in my dictionary for the longest period of time. Okay, let me make an attempt to address that now. You've asked me this question. I think preparing for life means hoarding more things, adding more credentials to yourself, doing more, knowing more, hoarding things, accumulating things. And thus, there's hardly any time to live. When I'm so busy preparing for life, when would I live? Preparing for death, on the contrary, on the other end of this continuum, letting go, and letting go, because you never know when is the last day. Steve Jobs said, I live my life on daily basis as if today is my last day. What a way to live a life, isn't it? Because when I know this episode is going to be the last episode of my life, how would I want this episode to be? And I'll be living in this moment because there's nothing to prepare. And in living life in this moment, I'll be letting go of everything. And that's preparation for death. So I said, rather, I'll look at these two statements and we'll divide that into three statements rather. Preparing for life, living life is equal to preparing for death. Here, I'm hoarding things. Here, I'm letting go of things. Here, I'm accumulating things. Here, I'm letting go of things. I'm just sharing it with others. Here, scarcity. Here, magnanimity. Here, give me more. Here, take more. Here, let me accumulate love. Here, let me love. Here, more preparation, more targets, more action, more running around. Here, just being. Just being. Because you never know when is the last breath which is going to come through my nostrils. When I would look at that from that space. I don't know if it's making sense to you.
I like it. No, it's nothing that I've actually ever thought about in the past before, but it's intriguing. You've got some interesting kind of philosophical quotes or ideas, so that's why I want to ask about them. This is a longer one. When you're clear about your intentions, the words start to flow through you and your actions seem aligned with who you are. So the deeper question is, how clear are you of your intentions? And can you elaborate on that?
I think that's how we started the conversation, Cameron, if you look at. I said that I don't know myself, who I am without my titles. I really don't know who I am without my titles. I'm on that journey where I'm making or something is happening, which is taking me closer to who I am. And the closest that I've been to who I am is the intention statement. And every time when I get muddled up, when the situation is messy, when I know I don't have an answer, when things are going off track, out of my hand, when I get distracted because of the glitters of the world, the lust of the world, the addictions of the world, I come back home to my intention statement. When I come back home to my intention statement, then there's no need to prove a point. There's no need to prove how smart I am. There's no need to be who I'm not. There's no need for external validation and the recognition and the appreciation and the accolades from the world. And then that's where I think Metaphorically, if intention is an object, it would look like a flute. And I'm just here to blow, and the music is going to get created in the environment that I'm a part of, which is worth millions, and yet I don't care.
Right. It's funny. I wonder if it doesn't feel to me like people think about these questions enough. I think they're so, are we distracted with our day to day, or what are we, what are we doing here?
One is, not everyone is blessed to have a friend like you, Cameron. It's I think it's the power of the questions, and the question that you are asking me, which is definitely making me ponder and reflect on life. That is one for sure. Second, I think we promote what we celebrate. The question is not that whether we take a pause and reflect on these questions or not. The question is, as a society, how much time do we invest in celebrating these kind of questions and reflections? Because if I'm not taking a pause and reflecting on these questions, because I know nobody's going to celebrate outside. And that's the reason it becomes really important to have communities, to have, you run CO Alliance. When people come together, they start to vibrate at a very similar level because they are discussing something which is poignant to them, important to them. Now, similarly, if we have a community where people are willing to come together and reflect on questions like that, I think just imagine the kind of space that we all can create for each other.
I wish people would think about this stuff more. I wish people would have these discussions more. These would be much more, much richer dinner discussions than, who won the latest cricket match or who won the latest football game.
That has its space for sure. That has its space for sure. Who won the cricket match? Who is playing tennis and who's dating whom? I think especially in India, we have these very, very fine discussions over dinner table where we discuss politics, we discuss cricket, and we discuss Bollywood. And we can tell you that which cricketer is dating which actress, right? Which politician is behind whom and what's happening. That's a spicy discussion, Cameron. Not everything needs to be serious.
That's true too. I guess some of this is the serious stuff as well, right? So you said, and this is a serious one, you have to kill self to meet self. Is this like the ego death?
Yeah, it's the death of the ego. This is so interesting. Long time back, I read somewhere. It says the act of creation begins with an act of destruction.
So I'm doing a psychedelic journey this week with a doctor, and it's a ketamine journey where I'll be injected with IV ketamine, and I will experience ego death, where I will at some point actually feel real death.
Yeah.
How do you experience, the ego death, or this kind of, how do you experience this without a psychedelics? What do you do?
Yeah. What a beautiful question. I think my way of killing my ego is taking a pause and reflecting on why I did what I did. And interestingly, my limited understanding says that anything and everything that we do, it's driven by ego. Anything. And there are very few people on the face of the earth, very, very few people, Cameron, who have been able to release that identity and ego. Very few people, with due respect to few of the so-called godmen in the country, in the world. I mean, look at the kind of clothes that they wear. Look at the kind of palaces that they have created for themselves. Look at the kind of cars that they drive. And then they are so-called sages, right? And I wonder, where are they coming from? They might have their own ways of justifying what they're saying. But then at the end of the day, that's just justification. Now, you have to kill a part of your own self to give birth to a new self, because it's a moment by moment killing of your ego. Now, we can ponder on that. What is ego? Ego is nothing but it's a safety mechanism created by your soul to protect yourself. I understand that. But at the same time, I think what I do, as Eckhart Tolle talks about that, I said, what I do, what I have, what I've accomplished, who I know, there are different routes to Tap into your ego. Now, coming back to the question from where you started, Cameron, who I am without the titles that I have, who I am without the people that I know, who I am without the accomplishment that I have. Can I kill that moment by moment? And can I continue to revisit my intention statement that this is who I am? And everything is transient, everything is temporary, be it thoughts, be it emotions, be it accomplishments, be it these relationships. And thus, going back to the era that you spoke about, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji walked thousands of miles from a space of detachment and pure love and care. Is it possible for people like me? My answer is no, at least not possible for me. But then nobody can stop me from walking on this path. If not in this birth, if there's a concept of reincarnation, next one, if not the next one, I'm sure.
I like it. All right. So this is an Eric Hansen quote that I know you like. What if I fail? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly?
Absolutely. What if you fly? Because unless I'm willing to take a risk, I'll not do anything. I just love this quote. What if you fail? Ah, shucks, man. Honey, hold on. What if you fly? What if from this episode you get to know who you are? What if through this episode you may want to wonder the world and look at the world from a very different perspective? What if? This question, what if, is a beautiful question. It can bring all the imaginations, all the dreams possible in this moment. What if I get an opportunity to sit next to you and be a part of your CO Alliance? What if we can bring in the work that you do to India? What if you, Oprah, and I can host a program? What if we can make a difference in the world? What if we can influence millions of people together? What if the world could be a beautiful place? I think this from what if Martin Luther King would have started when he said that I have a dream. What if we can create a world where the blacks and the whites can walk together? I think this what if is a beautiful question. And I love it because my daughter, Need, she's 3 years. She asked me a lot of what if questions. Gaurav, what if I can paint here? Of course, you're going to spoil the wall. But for her, she's going to create a Mona Lisa on the wall that she's painting. What if she could be a painter? What if she could be an artist? What if is a magical question, Cameron?
We had a franchise partner of ours when we were building 1-800-GOT-JUNK in the early days. We were meeting with some of the franchisees to get their ideas, and we were arguing. The head office was arguing with the franchisees, and they were arguing with us. And one of the franchisees put his hand up and he said, for the next 2 days, anytime someone says something, let's just think, what if we could? And it changed the whole trajectory of the company because
Absolutely.
It allowed us to think of possibility, right? So another quote of yours, when you are grateful, there is no fear. Why do you say that? It's interesting.
There's no doubt about that. When you're grateful, magic happens. I'm a firm believer of Shukrana. Shukrana is being grateful. Reminds me of I reached home one of these beautiful evenings and my mom was making dahi. Dahi is curd, right? And the simple process of making dahi is that you have the yeast, you put it in the vessel or a container, and in that you pour in warm milk and you keep it for some time. And after that, it's going to freeze and you keep it in the refrigerator once it cools down. And what you will get is curd. Now, while doing that, she was reciting Waheguru, 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 Waheguru. Waheguru is the name of the Lord, Guru Nanak Dev Ji I was talking about. And while doing that, out of curiosity, I said, Mom, why are you disturbing him here? He must be busy right now taking care of the world. Such a simple process. Why don't you do it yourself? And she said, you know what? This is my way of expressing Shukrana. At any point in time, I don't want to get an impression that this has happened because of me. I said, Mom, what does that mean? She said, it's happening to me, not because of me. And this is my way of expressing Shukrana. And when you know that the universe is here, universe is conspiring to help you achieve what you want to achieve through you, you can surrender. And when there is surrender, when there is gratefulness, when there is shukrana, where's the question of fear?
I like it. I was in Egypt 30 years ago and I learned the term shukran, which was thank you. Is that what shukran is giving thanks?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people won't necessarily be able to see me. I'm a Canadian kid, so that's why I had to ask. But that was when you kept saying shukran, that's what it meant to me was thank you,
Precisely.
or
Thank
giving
you.
thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So 108 episodes. I've been intrigued
Mm.
since you asked me to host this and to interview
Yeah.
you. Why 108? What's the number here? And I think I might know what it is. But
So 108 is, that's a symbolic number. 108. 8 is considered to be very sacred. 0 is shunya. 1 is the initiation of something. So if you look at initiation of something, taking a dive into nothingness, shunya, and then initiation of something which is into shunya and sacred and love and compassion. So it's a symbolic number, and there are several ways to look at that, both in Hinduism and Buddhism. People wear beads. I wear these beads, and what
yeah,
we call as
malas.
the malas, right, or the rosaries. And every time when you read a bead, you put more intention and mindfulness to one of the mantras, being more mindful and more intentional. And every time when you complete that, it's like the completion of one cycle. And then you start with another cycle. And with every cycle, you pour in more intention and mindfulness. And why are we celebrating 108th episode? Because this is the end of one cycle and we are getting into another cycle, which is more intentional, where we are going to be more mindful and we are going to get deeper into that, right? And we wanted to bring in this sense of mysticism. We wanted to bring in this sense of mindfulness and spirituality and intentional, where we are focusing and putting our attention together. So that's the next wave where we are going to bring in that element. So that's the reason why we wanted to celebrate 108th episode. And it's also an opportunity for me to express my shukrana to all the 107 guests, starting from Guru Raj Deshpandeji, Marilyn Atkinson, to all the way where I had the great opportunity of interviewing you and all the other guests and friends and thought leaders. I think that's the reason why it's so
Wow.
important.
That's interesting. I love it. And I used to wear malas as well. I'll have to go out and dig one back out again.
Yeah.
I love that story. So 108 episodes now. So picking up from that, what's your personal prayer that you say when you're doing the malas?
Oh, I just say shukran. I just say thank you. Because this is so interesting. What a beautiful question. Yesterday evening I was driving back home and I looked at all the situations where I would have expected a different outcome in my life. Also, I was looking at all the situations where I did not expect the outcome that I got, that I'm really proud of, that I'm really happy about, that delighted me. And I realized that even if I ask for something or I make a declaration, things happen the way they happen. So, an even better way that brings in more peace and serendipity and equanimity to my life is when I learn to live from a space of surrender and shukrana. And when I bring these two elements, I think there's nothing else but to celebrate life. There's nothing else but to be happy about, being more mindful about, and be in joy and be in peace and happiness always. Just celebrate life.
I like it. It's interesting. I'm interviewed as a guest on so many podcasts globally, and I do speaking events to groups of entrepreneurs all over the world. I'm speaking next month in Cairo, Egypt, to a group of entrepreneurs. It'll be the 27th country that I've been asked to speak in. And I'm always asked at the end, is there anything else I would say? And I'm like, yeah, none of this shit actually matters. Like none of this business stuff actually matters. It's the stuff that you're talking about today that matters. It's the stuff about, gratitude and love and the self-exploration. Because at the end of the day, we're all just walking each other home. none of us are getting out of this alive.
I love it
We're
when
gonna,
you said at the end of the day, we are just walking each other home. So true.
yeah,
So
Ram
true.
Dass. It's just let's hold
Precisely.
hands and enjoy the journey, right?
Precisely. Precisely.
So
Yeah.
what else have you got to share? I've got a little bit more time left, and then we should wrap up for our guest, but or for our listener. Is there anything else you want to share that maybe you've been thinking about recently, or?
I would say that I'm looking forward to the next phase of the X Monks drive. X Monks stand for the warrior monks. The warrior monks come from Saint Soldier. Saint Soldier comes from Sant Sipahi. That was the term coined by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji was the 10th Guru of Sikhism. So first Guru was Guru Nanak Dev Ji, what we spoke about. And the 10th Guru is Guru Gobind Singh Ji. He coined a term called Sant Sipahi. We call it the warrior monk. And somebody who's willing to pull the sword in service of others, to lift others. If I were to pull the sword out of my arsenal, I'll be very happy to do that. And even that means I have to sacrifice something in my life which is precious to me, the way Guru Gobind Singh Ji did that. So I think I would just want to say thank you to the entire team, which has been extremely kind and supported me to pull the X Monks drive together. All the help that they have been providing, all the guests who have been extremely kind for taking time out. And I'm so looking forward to the next phase. And I'm sure the way I've learned and I've grown as an individual, I can only pray for happiness and growth and peace and vitality and good health for self and others. And let's create the magic one more time. Let there be peace. And shukran, shukran, and shukran. Thank you.
I love it. Well, Gaurav, shukran. Thank you, and shukran for asking me to be here on the show today and interview you and get to know you a little bit more. I appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
For sure. Thank you so much.